If you landed on this transmission, it is because you are right there. You are right at the edge, right at the precipice, right at the threshold of living your ideal dream life, your new earth reality. You are right there on the precipice of your ideal timeline. This is a very potent message that's coming through. It's going to be a little different than my typical transmissions because I actually have some notes that I channeled through that I want to be able to share, and I want to make sure I don't miss anything because it's actually very particular. And so I'm going to be glancing down and sharing from some of my notes here in a second. But this is an activation. This is here to help you remember your truth and also help you completely collapse timelines into your ideal divine reality, the one that you are here to live, the one that your soul know that you have always been destined for, the one where you are living wildly, boldly, free and authentic on your own terms, doing what you love, sharing, channeling your gifts, whatever those are that happen to be particular to your divine authentic expression. It's going to be different for everyone. If you hear it's impossible for me to record around here without having Hazel or Ruby in the background. So they are just my divine little assistants. And so if you hear some clanging of their little dog call around the bowl, or maybe they're eating right now, they were taking a break, but you might hear them in the background. And so we're just going to dive into it. And by the way, my name is Sarah Rose. Welcome if you're new here. If you've been here for a while, welcome back. Welcome to Divine Femme TV. I am going to share, this has been feeling like it's going to be a bonus episode to the Quantum Ascension Shift Codes that I filmed in 2025. So this was a series that I launched live on YouTube. Actually, it wasn't live. Pre-recorded, dripped them out on YouTube, and they stayed up for 72 hours. And then after 72 hours, I took them down and put them into a self-paced activation program. So it currently is a 5-part video series. This is going to be the 6th transmission. It's going to serve as a bonus for that series. I haven't decided yet if I'm going to leave this up for 72 hours and then just put it into the program itself, or if I'm going to leave this one up complimentary on YouTube. I haven't decided that yet. I'll feel into that. So if you've landed here, definitely watch it all the way through because I can't guarantee it's going to stay up here the entire, for life. It may get rolled into the program as a bonus for those that get the program. And so I'm going to link that wherever you're going to see a link in the description or in the comments or in the video for the full series. I recommend, if this resonates, there's going to be 2 different types of people that tune into this because I'm speaking to different waves of the new earth leaders. So if you're right here on the precipice of stepping into your new earth reality, this is going to resonate, and it's going to be the little cherry on top. It's going to be like everything, like with the little bow. You've probably already watched the Quantum Ascension Shift Codes if you have been with me for a while. Even if you have not, this one is still going to activate within you what needs to be activated and for you to fully shift into your highest divine reality. If the other wave that I'm going to be speaking to are those that are still feeling a lot of density, they're still going through a little bit of the purification process, their sacred rebirth. You may be going through this void experience where nothing is making sense. Everything actually works very backwards here in the 5D. And if that is you, then I definitely highly recommend you get the full activation series. I made it super accessible. I think it's like $27, and I will link it wherever you're listening to this. Right now it's solely going to be on YouTube though. I have not put the series or on the podcast or any other place. So you're either watching this complimentary on YouTube or you're watching this inside the actual self-paced program, the Quantum Ascension Shift Codes. Either way, welcome. Let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so this is all going to be around coherence creation and coherence maintenance. Okay, let me take a sip of this. This is all about calibrating to your divine identity and understanding the basics around quantum mechanics. You do not have to be a quantum physicist in order to understand this. I can say that when you do understand how this simulation works, you're going to be able to move through this with a much deeper level of confidence. But here's what's happening on this ascension timeline that you're on, because if you've landed here, you're on the 5D ascension timeline. You are here to be a new earth leader. You're here to live fully embodied in your divine expression, and you are part of this new earth wave. Whether you're in the first wave, second wave, third wave, doesn't really matter, but you are living in a simulation, and you are creating this with your own conscious awareness. And it becomes more evident as you ascend on this timeline and you are more fully embodied in your divinity, because the apparent gap, many of you who've watched the previous episodes may remember this, the apparent gap between what you feel is your highest desired outcome for your life, which, spoiler alert, in New Earth is not going to be what the mind thinks, but that's okay that you feel like you know what that is, because following that intuitive nudge and following the curiosity and the feeling of fun and the frequency of fun is actually what's going to help it unfold. There is no supposed to, right? So it's like the mind wants to try to lock into a specific outcome or timeline, and it really doesn't work like that. But we're gonna dive into that. Before I get too sidetracked, the apparent gap collapses as you are more anchored in divine coherence and your divine feminine frequency, the God essence within you, the goddess frequency. As you are living from this divine presence as the truth of who and what you are, the gap between the manifestation gap, right? Because there's a delay. The world that you see with the naked eye is an echo of what you are fully embodying. It is a reflection, it is a mirror, and there is a perceived gap there. Thank God, because if you manifested everything very fast based on what you were thinking, you probably would not be happy with that. So you have the ability to calibrate your signal to what you're signaling to the field, and that perceived gap collapses as you are living from your divine identity. So this is like anti-manifestation. There's no need to manifest. The desire to manifest actually even falls away, because you're just creating from divine discernment, I like to call it, from your point of power, which is when you are anchored in your divine presence. And so it becomes very clear that you are living in a simulation, because there is no gap. Like, you will just create things almost instantaneously from the moment that you just plant them with your intention and with your, your focused awareness and your clarity and your divine discernment and decision. And so this is kind of where we're going to get started with this particular transmission, right? Because if you have landed here, you are calibrating to your higher timeline, and you're already seeing instant manifestations. You're already seeing that this is a simulation. You're already seeing very clearly the power of you locking in to your signal as a divine creatrix, let's call it, right? This is your divine identity. This is why I always speak to divine identity calibration. It's not another mask, this identity that you're wearing, right? When I say the word identity, it's just, it's actually a falling away of all the masks. You're living in pure presence where there is no label, there is no box, there is no mask. But then you also paradoxically get to play and wear any mask that you want, but it's not a mask like you're buying into it. You get to play reality consciously. You know what I mean? Like, you're not identified with any of with anything. You just get to be playing it and animating this experience and being this power source to the reality that you are divinely choosing. And it's not your ego choosing, it's something deeper within you choosing. It's the divine infinite intelligence that wants to animate your vessel and allow you to play in this game of life at the highest level through your divine authentic expression, which is on a soul level what you came here for, and what I know is really lighting you up, and what makes you just like, that is what you are craving on a deeper level here. or you wouldn't be resonating with this transmission. You want to play, you want to create, you want to be in the flow, you want to wake up and just be fully tapped in and to your divine essence, and allowing yourself to be the channel in order to express fully whatever wants to be expressed. And that is the most joyful place that you can be, is to be creating and expressing authentically in the now, based on what wants to flow through the sacred temple, the sacred vessel that this body is, that you were gifted, that you chose to wear as like this vehicle that allows you to move through this 3D experience and play this game of life at the highest level. I know this lights you up at the highest level because it's what your soul came here to experience. And if it doesn't, then you are not on the right video right now, right? You probably should be doing something else with your time that does light you up. But I trust and know that if you've made it this far, you're already tuned in and tapped into this, and you're part of the soul collective that came here to be a new earth leader and live their highest divine reality, which means fully expressed, authentically, fully embodied in your divinity. And I'm just going to speak to this a little bit more. I'm just going into channeling mode right now. I don't even know what's coming through. It's just coming through. So the other thing that's coming through is, God, I just lost it. It always happens. It'll come back. It'll come back. It'll come back. I know it'll circle back. So what I'm going to get back to is the fact that it becomes very apparent that you're living in a simulation, long story short, when you are identified with the truth of who and what you are. There's something right here that wants to come back. I can feel it. It'll come back. Okay. So we're going to be speaking to the co-creative coherence creation and coherence maintenance, because this is the final piece. This is the final thing that keeps you from being right there, because if you've landed here, you're sick of being right there. You're sick of being right at the edge. You're sick of being right on the cusp. You're sick of being right at the precipice. And this isn't I can't say it's like a frustration. It's just like a holding pattern that you're keeping yourself in, because your signal that you're sending out has a lot of static in it. And that's what this transmission is for. It's to help fine tune your signal that you are broadcasting to the field, so it can finally reflect back the new earth timeline that you know you're here to live. And it's going to be, this is what wanted to come through. It just came back. You're always quantum shifting timelines. Like every single present moment is a new conscious choice point for you to divinely discern what you are available for. So quantum shifting timelines is what's always happening, although you're not necessarily aware of that, maybe 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago, that you're constantly shifting timelines. But like I said, it becomes very apparent as you are operating from your true frequency, because that apparent gap between manifestation collapses and things become very instantaneous. The thing that was coming through that wanted to be shared is that this isn't any quantum shift. Like, for example, I've quantum shifted and completely changed my trajectory like overnight many times over the course of my lifetime, right? But this is not any quantum shift. This is quantum shifting while on the 5D ascension timeline into your new earth frequency, into your new earth, heaven on earth reality that you are here to live, fully expressed as the transmission and as the lighthouse. So no pressure, no big deal, right? You came here as a new earth leader. This is not your average quantum shift. Okay, so I know you've been hearing a lot about quantum shifting and timelines and all that kind of stuff for a while now before you've even landed here. So I get it. This video is not just going to be a little cheerleading pep talk. I'm going to dive into some clear signs that the signal that you're sending to the field is fuzzy and not really sending what it's not really sending a signal that's in alignment with your highest divine reality. And so that's what you're seeing reflected back. And that's why you're almost there and almost there and almost there and always on the cusp and always on the precipice. I'm here to tip you in, right? By shining a light here, take what resonates. You're your own guru, but I'm going to actually give you some tangible, like, things. You might even want to grab your journal. This is going to be like one of my teaching transmissions, right? Versus just channeling. And that's why I have some notes that I've journaled through right before hitting record here. So anyways, let's get to it. Okay. I spoke a little bit already about this, is that each and every choice point is here in the now. And this is when you get to choose what you are available for. So many of you have been going through calling in something very fast, just to see that timeline is not it. And so that's great. You called it in, you went down that timeline a little bit, figured out it's not it, called it in, went down another timeline a little bit, realized it's not it, repeat, rinse and repeat. That's great. This is a sign that you are getting really clear on divine discernment of what is truly, truly authentic to you. And this is also part of dropping the performance identity, because a lot of things that you were calling in previously may have been for reasons outside of what your soul is really craving, and have been more for performance or validation, or what you thought you should be calling in because that's how you've always done it before, and you're still trying to create from logic or linear timeline or past experiences and things like that. And in the New Earth 5D timeline, you're here now, you're stepping into the unknown, you're free falling and trusting life, and you're taking inspired action and following the frequency of joy, fun, and freedom, and flow, and your pleasure, and you're having fun, you're playing and creating. You're not creating from obligation or what you think you should be doing, or what worked in the past, or what makes logical sense, or what seems to create some kind of linear steps for yourself. All of that really doesn't work in the 5D, and the more you try to do that, the more you'll be frustrated, because you're here to trust fall with life and fully anchor into the remembrance of who and what you are, and lead from your divine presence, right? And this is where all your power lies, and it's only here and now. So first and foremost, there's a reason why it's called quantum ascension shift codes. It's because you're quantum shifting, yes, but you're also on this ascension timeline, which means everything is happening here in the now. And here in the now, there is no time, there is no space, there is no distance. You are here now, which is what kind of collapses that perceived gap, right? In the manifestation process, is when you are living here now, things happen very, very fast, because you are no longer operating from this linear timeline of past and future projection, right? Or past memory, and then linear logical thinking that leads you somewhere down some kind of, future projected timeline. And so it's really about releasing all of the expectations around stuff and being able to follow in the now what really lights you up and what feels like joy and fun. And again, I dive into that in the previous episodes. So now we're gonna get a little bit more to the point of this transmission again. And I know I'm kind of rehashing a little bit, so I hope you're following along, because I kind of circle when I channel. I kind of circle and then I bring it forward a little bit more and tie it in a little bit more. It's time to get clear on what you want. Long story short, here and now, what do you want? You've already seen that you are manifesting very quickly. And if you haven't experienced rapid manifestation, the anti-manifestation, the gap completely collapsing, then you are somewhere on this New Earth timeline, and this is what you are moving into. And again, I recommend you get the entire activation series that you can find linked wherever you're watching this right now, which is most likely only going to be YouTube. For the time being, for as long as this is up. It's time to get crystal clear and discerning around what it is that you want, because you've been calling in different timelines. The reality is fluid. There is no obligation. There is no supposed to. What lights you up? What really brings you joy? If like if money were no object and like you already knew everything would work out, like how would you want to be spending your time? You have to be willing to answer those questions. What really lights you up? And you have to release the whole expectation around, okay, how is this going to sustain me? How is this going to make money? How is this going to help me? It may not make any logical sense, right? But you need to get really clear on that. And at this stage of the game, if you're watching at this level of awareness that you've been embodying, divine presence that you've been embodying, you have the ability to get crystal clear discernment and lock the F into the signal that you are broadcasting. Lock in to where you feel it in the body. This is not conceptual. You don't hang out in the conceptual mind. Well, maybe I want this. Well, maybe I want that. And it's not about not being open to bigger and better, and like you're always open to bigger and better, but get clear on what it is that you're available for and what it is that you're not available for. Okay, and when you start to lock into that, that is coherence creation, right? But this is coming from the present moment. It's coming from you being here now. It's not coming from your mental realm of you trying to think about what it is that you feel might be possible for you based on previous experience, history, and past conditioning. You are bypassing all of that. That is all. You are prior to the conditioning. You are prior to the thought patterns. You are prior to all of that. And when you come home to what you are prior to form and you start to speak into existence what you are available for, you will see it start to manifest in the 3D reality very fast, because you are closing that you're closing this appeared gap. There is no gap in truth. And so things start to happen very fast, but you got to get clear, and you have to be anchored in the now, right? Which means I'm going to share, I drop this all the time and I don't think anybody actually takes it serious, but I'm being called to share this right now. For 3 years prior to, especially the last year prior to me completely shifting into this whole new reality and completely surrendering to life, trusting life, and going on this adventure in nature and sacred luxury and watching things unfold perfectly, but also like in this way where it's like I couldn't have planned it any better, and spending time in nature and slow mornings and with my fur babies and leaving the old identity and even the old structures and things behind, and now being called to a new land, and then in Lake Tahoe, where I'm more surrounded by nature and earth element and water element, and all of this lights me up. And it's like surrendering to what really lights me up without having to figure out the how. Anyways, prior to all of this, I would go on what was called sacred walks. And I've talked to my clients about this in all the different programs all the time. Sacred walks in presence, right? In presence, in divine presence. And so I'm going to share a tangible thing right now that will exponentially help you shift into divine identity calibration, because this is an embodiment game. This can't remain at the conceptual level. Okay, so I would go on these sacred walks where it wasn't to try to get something. It wasn't to try to force anything. It wasn't to try to manifest anything. It was a natural desire that just continued to feed my soul to be in nature, just on the nature trail in a very urban setting in Scottsdale, Arizona, where it's not like I was surrounded in the forest and stuff like, and the lakes and everything like I am now. It was a very urban setting, but there happened to be a little bit of a nature trail around my community. And I would walk for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 miles in presence. And I'm going to give you some tangible ways to do this right now. And I hope you take it seriously. And I share again like this with all my clients. And this is about dropping into the body, into the senses, being fully present. So I wouldn't walk my dogs. I wouldn't bring my phone, right? Dropping into the body, into the senses, and dropping language. So I wouldn't constantly narrate the experience. I would witness the mind attempt to narrate the experience, right? So it would be like if I saw a tree or a hummingbird or something like that, I wouldn't immediately just like, oh, look at that tree. Oh, what a cute hummingbird. Or, oh my God, you know what I mean? Like that constant narration that's happening, that's the mind coming in, narrating everything. Stillness is the portal to your quantum womb of creation, your 0 point, coming into stillness, coming into presence, anchoring through the breath into presence, being here and now with all of the senses, and not having to narrate the experience from the conceptual mind, trying to label everything 24/7. That's actually control coming in the back door, because the mind thinks that if it can continue to narrate and put everything in boxes and make sense of everything that is being seen, it can stay in some kind of sense of control. And I promise you, this is coming up in my notes too, control is, it's this mind trying to stay in some kind of sense of control. And we're going to talk more about this in a second. I just glanced down at the notes, but I don't want to get... the mind is constantly going to be pulling you into this like predictive kind of like trying to figure everything out, trying to maintain control, trying to label everything, right? The mind is rooted in duality. The mind is rooted in separation consciousness. The mind that, I'm not speaking to the divine mind. I'm speaking to the mind that is the tool that you are here to use to pay your bills and to drive the car and to do all the things. The mind cannot be the compass here, though. And as long as the mind is always trying to narrate things, even what seems very subtle, even like just the tree and the hummingbirds and things like that, as you go for a walk, the mind is trying to maintain a sense of control there by labeling everything and making sense of everything, and giving everything a narrative and a story. And people will live their entire life at the level of the conceptual mind, constantly narrating everything. You've experienced this, that little mind, that little thought that you are aware of, the awareness, the truth of who and what you are is aware of this thought that is arising, but you become very identified with that mind and that thought pattern and that narrator, that you then walk around reality as if you are this narrator. And then you become subject to the polarity swing of the mind that is trapped in duality of good and bad and past and future. And you just continue to live on this hamster wheel of chasing and running from what you think you want, or running towards what you think you want and running away from what you don't think you want, because you're on this constant pendulum swing. Right? You're on this linear timeline. You're trying to live life from the conceptual mind, which is very linear. And you're here to live present, here and now, in your Christed self. Isn't this interesting? What is this? This is the cross, right? You are not here to live on the linear timeline. You are here to live present here in the now, right? So think of this more horizontally. Every single timeline is present here in the horizontal, right? It's like they're all simultaneous, parallel timelines happening right now. It's not a linear timeline. This is only in the mind when you're living from past memory and future projection. But you are here living now where everything is possible. Okay? So that just came through. I wasn't planning on that, but I totally need to take a sip now before I get too sidetracked. By the way, drop any comments if you're listening to this and this is resonating or activating or anything like that. I'd love to hear from you. Okay, so the sacred walks were not only regulating my nervous system by being in nature and listening to the sounds of the birds, which naturally regulate your nervous system, being in the fresh air and the sunlight, and not being in the mind and being present in the body and breathing and noticing where there was tension in the body and breathing into that. But it wasn't like a practice. It was just like an awareness, like so it was like the sacred walk is something that you can initiate immediately, regardless of where you live. Whether you're in a foresty setting like I live in now, or whether you're in an urban setting like I have for 27 years back in the Phoenix Metro Scottsdale area, It's about dropping into presence and surrendering, right, into the body, right? Like deepening into the body, into the senses, and coming out of the conceptual mind consciously and allowing yourself to be present here in the now. So I know this sounds very simple, but this is just like something that's coming up as a tangible thing that you can begin to implement, that's doing many things on it. Not only is it dropping you into presence and coherence, but also it's regulating your nervous system simultaneously, and it's creating spaciousness within you, okay? And it's creating, you're not glued to the thought pattern anymore and identified with the mind. This is a devotion. It's a devotional practice. So if you feel called, that's a recommendation, because this is all about divine identity calibration. Because when you lock in to living in the now as the truth of who and what you are at your core, which is not the thought patterns, not the mind, not the past memories, not the, the future projections, or even the body's conditioning, you were prior to all of that. Now you can choose from divine discernment what you want to experience for the pure fun and joy of it. So we're back to getting clear on what it is that you want. Clear, divinely discerning, I like to call it, because it's not like you're in the mind trying to figure out what you want based on what you think is possible from past experience. I know I said that once, but I'm just repeating it. You're here and now, and you are declaring from your power, your divine God essence, the divine power that lives within you. And there's no settling or compromising or sacrificing there. That is just pure divine power, right? There's nothing weak about it. There's nothing flimsy about it. There's nothing like, well, maybe, blah, blah, blah. No, you're in your mind. Just like lock in and get clear on what you're available for from this place of power, and declare it and discern it and choose it with certainty and conviction that this is what you're here to experience, because it's what is bubbling up from your heart and your soul, not from the egoic mind, because you're not living there anymore. Does that make sense? Okay. So this is part one of this. Coherence, creation, and maintenance is getting clear and discerning what you want while anchored in your I am presence, the divine presence that you are. And I'm going to share with you now some ways where you can calibrate your signal so that everything after that, it's done. It's finished. God heard you the first time, right? When you get clear, it's finished. Have you ever noticed that sometimes things pop into your experience when you just slightly intend it, and then the next thing you know, it's there, and there wasn't, like, you didn't have to repeat it a million times. That needing to repeat it a million times, or trying to manifest it, or trying to do it, this whole trying energy is not working for you anymore, and it's diffusing your signal. It's causing too much of a static signal to the field. So we're going to move into part two of this, which is coherence maintenance, because everything after this is just maintenance, because you're still going to have your conditioning, and you're going to have the mind come in that wants to try to maintain control and wants to try to figure things out. It's very predictive in nature. It wants to figure everything out. It wants to have a certain outcome, certain expectations. It wants to maintain control, which is why the sacred walk, where you're literally dropping language and dropping out of the mind, is very key, because it helps calibrate you to divine coherence, so you're not stuck in the duality polarity swing of the linear mind, right? And you can come into a state of no mind, divine mind, which is now and only now. And guess where your new earth reality exists is here, and it's only now, and it's always now. There's only one time in new earth, and it's now. That's it. Now, you still get to navigate through reality, but you're doing it at a much higher level of awareness now, right? So it's always here, it's always now. And within the now, you may have to go to an appointment at 3 o'clock or book a flight at a certain time, right? But that's all happening here and now. Okay? So I hope you're still with me. All right, so I'm going to glance down at my notes so I don't miss some of this. All right, so I want to give you some signs that are clear signals that you're falling back and you're collapsing into the old identity, right? You're starting to try to regulate the discomfort that's coming up because you're not seeing it reflected in the 3D reality, and the mind is thinking something is off, something is missing. And so the mind is going to try to come in and maintain control, right? And it's going to try to predict things. It's going to try to figure things out. It's going to try to make things happen, blah, 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 all of that, because the mind is equating, like that, because it's not seeing immediate evidence, right, in the 3D world, reflecting back immediately that something is off and something is wrong. The mind is wired for threat prevention, so it's going to do its thing. You have to be able to witness that with a high level of awareness from the truth of who and what you are, which is the divine presence prior to the mind, prior to thought, prior to the survival mechanism, prior to the need to control or predict, or the fear and all the things that are going to bubble up during this phase, which throws people off. So a clear sign that you're falling back into the old timeline. And this is just part of the oscillation that happens. So there's nothing wrong with this, but I'm just you're at the point now where you can get laser focused here. You can get laser locked in and really clear. So for example, signs that you're creating more static in your signal. I'm just going to glance at the notes that I just journaled through. First, there's an emotional urgency, okay? There's an emotional urgency. That is fear-based. So again, everything is like, not again, because I didn't say this yet, I don't think, but we're moving from fear-based consciousness as you ascend on your highest timeline into unity consciousness. In unity consciousness, oneness consciousness, whatever you call it, there is no gap, there is no urgency, there is no need to manifest, right? So you're falling into, I'm just going to list some of these off. You're falling into emotional urgency. That is putting static in your signal, right? You're no longer locked in with conviction and certainty. You're no longer just locked in and it is finished. It is finished. Just like Joshua said in the Bible, it is done. It is finished. From your Christed self, your divine presence, the truth of who and what you are, which is the light of God in human form. You are an expression and child of the One. That is how powerful your conscious focus is. It is finished. It is done. The mind is going to do its thing. The emotional urgency that comes up is a sign that's the static. You're putting static in the signal. The other sign is that doubt. This is a big one. Doubt is going to come up because you're not seeing it reflect back immediately in the 3D world, which does have a lag. Not everything is instantaneous, and that's by divine design. You're being challenged to have faith and trust in your knowing, right? And so your only job now is to stay locked into your certainty and your knowing. And everything else is going to happen, like the doubt and the fear and all the other things are going to come up, but you can still stay locked into your certainty and your knowing, right? And I'm going to talk about that in a second. But like, so emotional urgency, doubt. The other thing that comes up is hope. Excessive hope, or hope in general. This is not hoping. This is not trying. Hope, hoping that this is going to work, hoping that you're going to move into your timeline, your highest timeline. Hoping is fear-based. Hoping means you're not certain, you're not locked in, you're not locked into your conviction, you're not locked into your divine knowing. This is a knowing that you stay locked into. Your knowing trumps everything else. If you're in hoping energy, trying energy, or a sense of emotional urgency or doubt, then you're adding static to your signal. And that is what the field is picking up on. And so then the field can only reflect back to you this static signal. It's not locked into your divine identity. Okay? So emotional urgency, doubt, excessive hope, constantly checking to see if something's working, right? So you're constantly seeking proof outside of yourself. That is the opposite of knowing, right? That is another form of doubt. You are the proof. You are the only proof. When you lock the F into your divine knowing, you are the proof. And that is the only proof that you need. So as long as you're still seeking the proof outside of yourself in the 3D world, in the mirror, that can only be a reflection of what you are embodying. Do you see how this doesn't work? You're trying to do it backwards. You're trying to like get the reflection in the mirror to change before you have locked fully into your divine knowing. Right? So that is like working opposite, right? The mirror can only reflect back what you're embodying. So if you want the mirror to smile at you, you have to smile, right? It doesn't work any other way. The 3D world is just an echo of what you've already been embodying. So first it helps to recognize that it's already in the past. It's already what you've been embodying. So you're going to see a lag of the old identity in the 3D reality as you're locking into your new signal. And so you can know that. And when you know that, then you no longer give it the emotional weight, and therefore no longer have the emotional urgency, and no longer like messing up your nervous system and all the things, right? You can lock into the knowing that that is not, it doesn't mean anything about the identity that you just locked in. In fact, it is just like the past, right? Like it's already manifested. It's already in the 3D reality. Stop looking at the 3D mirror and letting it be your indicator. It can't be your barometer of what is possible. You know what is possible when you are locked into the truth of your being. Because what is speaking through you when you are locked into the truth of your being is God. And it is no longer being muddied up by the mind, right? By the threat prevention tool that you have to navigate 3D reality and stay safe. It is no longer, the mind is no longer leading. When you are locked into your divine essence, God is speaking through you. Those soul desires are God-given. That's why they're still there. And you can't shake them. It's because that's what your soul came to experience. Trust in this knowing and stop looking at the 3D world as a barometer of what is available to you. I know I'm kind of like pulling from, I think I mentioned some of this stuff. I know I mentioned a lot of this in the previous episodes of this series. So if you are resonating with this, again, I recommend checking out the whole thing. I know I'm pulling pieces from that because sometimes you just need to hear it in different ways or again, right? So let's get back to some of the other signs that you're throwing up static in your signal. Mentally negotiating your desired outcome to be more realistic. No, you don't have to negotiate anything. Like this is your divine identity, divine reality. This is your new earth timeline. This is you living your highest divine expression. There is no negotiation. There is no settling. There is no sacrificing. There is no compromising. There is no making your sacred vision smaller to fit your fear-based narrative. There is you recognizing the fear-based narrative and no longer giving power to it so you can hold the sacred vision so reality can rise to meet that. You cannot lower your vision to meet, where your old identity programming is. Otherwise, obviously you're just, that's the gravitational pull of the old identity, right? So that is a common sign that you're throwing static in your signal, is you're mentally in your head. This isn't happening at the level of the heart and the level of knowing. You're mentally, keyword mentally, negotiating your desired outcome to then be more realistic with what you think, keyword think, is possible based on what? Past conditioning, past experience, what you've always known to be true up until now, aka old identity that you were leaving behind. You cannot use that as your barometer of what is possible. You are then shrinking your vision to match your old programming, your old survival mechanism, your old way of doing things, the way that you think things could work out or should work out or whatever. And it's all based on the mind. It's all based on things that are not you. Those are not you. Those are arising within you. You were prior to all of that. And this is why it's important to stay locked into your divine presence so you can see that those things are arising within you and not cling on to them and glue onto them and then let them drive your reality as, you know, the driver. Those are not meant to be driving the reality. Your heart is driving the reality. You're moving from fear-based consciousness to heart-centered consciousness. So you cannot let these little things of the old identity, these fear-based mental negotiations and things like that, and all this doubt that then leads to mental negotiation come up and then shrink your sacred vision that your heart already knows to be true. Because what you're doing is you're like gluing yourself to that thought pattern, that paradigm, and then that still keeps you right there, but not fully in living your highest divine reality. What it does is it keeps you tethered to the old identity. That's the signal that you're broadcasting. Okay, another one is attempting to be overly grateful in order to create some sense of inner calmness. That's another sign that your signal is being distorted, right? Because gratitude will come, but it will come naturally. Forcing gratitude or trying to be overly grateful in order to force a sense of calmness means that you are operating as a separate sense of self, attempting to manipulate things so you can feel better. And that is, again, where you are trying to regulate the discomfort. So these are all examples of you trying to regulate the discomfort of the fact that you have just locked into what you say you want. You are discerning it. You are coming from a heart level, and then reality doesn't reflect it back right away. The mind is going into overdrive, trying to mediate things and control things and predict things and label things and take control again, because control is it's a false sense of safety for you. And so then all of these ways of regulating the discomfort come up, and this is what's keeping you tethered to that signal of the old identity. And then the other thing kind of ties into what I already said around mentally negotiating your desired outcome to be more realistic, and that is revisiting your desire again. Like, it's okay to modify as more things become clear, but constantly revising your desire instead of just allowing it to unfold is fear-based. It's because it's not here, quote unquote, yet. You're still locked into the old signal, so it can't materialize yet. It can't form in the 3D yet. And so then you're revising your desire. So that's closely related to mentally negotiating your desire in order to be more realistic, right? Yeah. So let's see here. I'm going to take a sip. Okay. I think I'm going to pause this now and then start a new transmission for this, like part 2 of this. I will be right back.